Hey y'all, this took place the summer of 2022, and I just never thought of writing down this story because I was so stunned that it happened to me. So every summer in my city, me and my friends like to make small campfires in chill, secluded areas because we don't want to drive an hour to an actual campsite and pay any campsite fee to do so. These happen pretty spontaneously, so it's a nice last minute hang to do. There's this one spot near my house that's located by a river that's really nice because no one usually goes there. So one particular night at 11 p.m, I decided to go ahead of my friends and meet them at the spot and set things up early because I want us to be chilling once they all get here. The spot I get to has a 2-minute paved walkway I have to go through, and then I have to take a small trail ramping down the right side of the bridge that crosses over the river. Alongside this paved walkway is 2 lamps located at the halfway point and another at the start of the bridge, down to the campfire spot. I park my car at the beginning of the trail on the street and bring my campfire stuff like a flashlight, lighter, small firewood, and a small shovel to dig out the pit, etc. I get to the spot, and it's a small sandy beach kind of embankment on the side of the river with a small waiting area for toddlers with their family during the hot summers. So I set up the chair and I get to dig in the pit, with only my flashlight illuminating where I'm digging. I'm also just shoveling the sand right next to me, nowhere near the water, but all of a sudden I hear a loud splash. A splash so loud that it can only come from something equally large like a 2-hand sized rock. I'm confused because I swear I'm not throwing my sand into the water, even though I'm only a few feet away. I shine my flashlight at the water, and I don't see anything. So I just kind of brush it off, thinking I'm just hearing things. But as I keep shoveling a bit more, I hear another loud splash. At this point, I think something is falling from above, because logically, something must be falling into the water. I point the flashlight above where some trees are that are above the river, and I don't see anything big enough to make the splash. So as I keep digging, with my heart rate kind of going up at this point, I hear a rustling past the arch of where the bridge goes over the river. I quickly grab my light and shine it towards where I hear the rustling. I call out, "Hello?" No response. In my head, if it was a bear, I should be getting out of there immediately. But there is no bear, or signs of anything for that matter. So I tell myself I'm just hearing things now because I've seen horror movies before, and now my mind's playing tricks on me. But I hear the noise again, and it clearly sounds like leaves being rustled. So I shine my flashlight over to the area again, and as I focus my eyes towards the illuminated area, I see the naked back of a man hunched over. I was kind of frozen in anxiety and stress, because honestly, of all the things I was to see, I didn't think I would see the naked back of a man. From the quick analysis my brain could muster up, he looked to be mid-40s, shaved, not bald, and medium-ish build, like a mix between chubby and built. As I had my flashlight staying on his back, he started to stand up, and the first thing I noticed was that he wasn't wearing any pants either. My next reflex was to start packing up all my crap and getting the hell out of there, because now I'm piecing in my head that he must have been throwing things into the water to scare or shoot me away. So after using my reflexive deductive skills, I proceed to speed walk out of there with all my stuff. I'm carrying all my things with me and briskly walking up the small ramp. I can feel my heart beating in my chest, and I'm frequently looking back to make sure I'm not being followed. I'm in Crocs, mind you, so I'm hoping that if I had to book it out of there, I'd regret not being in sports mode from the get-go. I make it to the halfway point, and a sense of relief starts setting in, knowing I made it safely out of this very scary situation. But as I check behind me for the final time, I see something. Slowly creeping over the ramp is a naked man crawling on all fours as if he was primate walking. His head was positioned towards me, looking at me as he made his way to the middle of the paved walkway. He slowly gets up from his stance and starts standing on his feet After setting himself into his new position, the man starts running towards me. I freaking book it. I run as hard as I can down the path. My flashlight jumped out of my pocket and I lost it. But I didn't care because a whole naked ass man was chasing me at 11 p.m. at night in a secluded forest. I looked back for a split second and the man was still running towards me, still completely naked. He could have my flashlight for all I care. I wanted to make out of this situation alive. I finally make it out of the forest and I run to my car, which is only 30 feet away from the end of the forest. I desperately get to my car and, like a classic horror movie, I fumble with trying to get my key to unlock my car. I actually drop my keys and quickly think to myself, I'm actually dead, but I brush the dot off and pick them back up. I get my fob properly, unlock my doors, and throw my things into my back seat before getting to my car. This felt like an eternity, but in hindsight, most likely it took 6 seconds altogether. As I try to guide my key into the ignition, I am fixated on the end of the paved path that I was just at a few seconds ago, waiting to see if the naked man was coming still. I feel my key go into the ignition, and I switch my sights onto the road in front of me. I zoom out of the area as fast as possible. As I drive away, and I'm a good 30 seconds from the location of the horror that just took place, I get a call on my phone. It was my friends calling me, asking if I made it to the spot yet, and all I say to them is, "Guys, do I have a crazy story to tell you?" They pull up to my house because, again, it was actually decently close to the campfire area, and I tell them the whole story the way that I told it just now. They swear that it was none of them trying to prank me or anything like that, and I also knew none of them would try to full sprint at me with their dong out. But as we are just talking out in front of my house, there's a college student who looks like he's walking home, that's going towards the direction of where I encountered the naked man. I just yelled out to him, "Yo, be careful. There's a naked guy that was chasing me by the bridge that crosses over the river." He responds saying, "Oh damn, really? I gotta go over that bridge to go home." All I tell him is, "Good luck, man." The next day, I reported it to the police by phone, but they sent over an officer so I could tell them in person and show them where in the area I saw these things. When we went to see where I initially saw the man's back hunched over, they said they didn't see any trace of anyone being there previously, but the officer said they would make note of it anyways, in case it happens again. Some friends say it's a skinwalker, others say more realistically, it's either a homeless, mentally ill, or a high person. One theory I've heard my friends say is that it's a future version of me pulling a prank on past version of me, because honestly, if time travel is real, I would totally screw with my younger self like that. I used to live in a small neighborhood from ages 13 to 18. This took place when I was around 15. I spent most of my time just walking around the neighborhood, listening to my MP3 player. There was a guy around the same age as me that lived maybe 5 or so houses down from me. From neighborhood gossip, I learned that he was homeschooled and had been in and out of juvie due to his anger issues. He was almost always outside, and sometimes when I passed his house, he would start following me. I was smart enough to always have my music down low enough to be able to hear and be aware of my surroundings. At first, I just passed it off as him walking at the same time of day I did. As time passed, he got closer and closer to me when following, until he eventually decided to come up right behind me. He said some truly heinous things that I will not repeat here. I ran home and told my sister. She told me I was lying and to stop making up stories. For a while, I stopped going out walking until I needed the fresh air and exercise, and tried again after maybe 2 months. Sure enough, there he was, and came right up behind me and started to say things again. I turned my music up and ignored him. This is what I continued to do every day until he got tired of me ignoring him, I guess. Because one day he grabbed my arm. I couldn't get away, and then he grabbed the back of my neck and told me that I should have known better than to ignore him. Again, I told my sister. She didn't believe me, and I stopped going out again. 2 weeks later, I woke up to loud bangs on my bedroom wall. There was a garage on both sides of the house, and the wall in my bedroom shared a wall with one of the garages. This garage was unfinished. There wasn't even concrete down, and it was easily accessible from outside as it was missing the door at the back of the house. My sister was out of town, and my dad was deaf and bedridden, so it was just me in the house able to do anything. My bedroom also had a door to go outside, so I ran over and locked it. I laid down and waited for the banging to stop, but it didn't. My cousin and her boyfriend lived down the street, so I called her, and she sent her boyfriend down to see what it was. Her boyfriend pulled right into the backyard and right up to the door in the garage. His headlights filled the garage and outran the guy from down the street, holding a large knife. He took off running, and my cousin's boyfriend followed. It was at this time I called the police. They came and took a statement, but said there was nothing they could do because other than going into the garage and trespassing, he didn't actually do anything. I never took a walk in that neighborhood again. I still wonder how he knew what wall to bang on. How did he know I was on the other side of it? How did he know my sister was gone, or that my dad was bedridden and couldn't do anything? I never locked the door, so had he been in my house to know? What would have had happened if I would have gone outside? It still gives me the creeps. So guy down the street, let's not meet again. This happened about maybe 6 years ago, but to this day it still freaks me out. Back then, I was living on my own with a few friends in an apartment, but every so often, I would go back to my mom's to just stay the night if I was too lazy to drive back home. We had a few weird experiences before this, but there was nothing too scary. I think the scariest thing that had happened is my sister had taken a selfie of herself in the mirror, and in the background, you could see a figure of a woman. If I could have found the picture, I would have posted for context. But other than that, we've seen all kinds of weird paranormal stuff. My whole family is firm believers in it, but then there was this that had happened. I had stayed at my mom's, fell asleep on the couch and woken up pretty early to my sister going to school and my mom going to work. Since it was pretty early and everyone was leaving, I moved to my mom's room to sleep a little bit longer before I left. Our family dog joined me and I slept a little while longer. When I woke up, I sat in bed on my phone and had the TV on. I was pretty lazy, so I sat in there until maybe 10:30 to 11 a.m. and that's when I heard it. My mom's room was on the second level, but it was only about 10 stairs up from the kitchen and the dining room. From the kitchen, I could hear my mom yelling my name. I sat there for a second thinking I was hearing things, until I heard it 3 more times, and at this point, my dog even perked up like he had heard it. My dog sat there and ran out the room to investigate. I was creeped out because I hadn't heard anyone come home, nor anyone walking around. I got up, looked from the top of the stairs, didn't see anyone, and called out for my mom. When she didn't answer, I went back into her room and called her, and asked if she stopped by for lunch and was just trying to say hi. She said no and asked why. I told her about what I heard and she was creeped out, but told me I should be fine. This continued to happen for about 4 years of them living in the house. I moved back in, and this time, my sister went off to college out of state. I would go out to the garage late at night to smoke weed, and when I'd sit there, I could hear my sister's voice yelling "Mom" over and over again, and then it would stop. I would get freaked out and go back to my room and never hear it down there. I chalked it up to maybe me being high and paranoid, but still told my mom. That's when she told me she would hear the same thing when she would go out to the garage to smoke her cigarettes. She didn't want to tell me at first because she thought she was hearing things, until I told her I heard the exact same thing. The scariest part to me is it would be in their exact voices. We have all moved out of that house since and it hasn't happened, but I want to know what paranormal thing was in that house.